Welcome to another of the Builders Agency Lessons. This is where we go back, or I go back, and in that last week or so, running my agency, and try to identify something that we can learn from. Something that happened that we can become wiser about, or whatever. So this week it's actually kind of funny because as I recorded this already, and I had to re-record it, because I'm having trouble with Riverside this morning. Riverside is the software I use to record podcasts, even solo ones these days. But for some reason, there's been a ton of lag. When I posted on Wednesday had a lot of lag. I thought, well, maybe it's a one-time thing. And then I recorded today's, and there was a lot of lag. It wasn't in sync with the video, wasn't in sync with the audio. This thing's messed up. And so, but that actually ties into what we're talking about today a little bit. It's an example of where it's good to have a backup plan. It's good to have something else that you can go to if things go sideways. Like in this case, I went to Zoom. I have not recorded on Zoom in a long time, so this is kind of fun. But that would be an option. Or I was actually thinking about going to try another solution anyway. But then I have to figure that all out, a whole new interface and all this. So we're just doing this today. But this ties into the topic. The topic is all about what happens when you have an employee or somebody on your team, or maybe a contractor, somebody you outsource a particular part of your business to, a project or whatever, and that person gets sick or leaves. It's just gone one day. What happens? Are you prepared for that? That can be a really big vulnerability. I realize I'm not very good at saying vulnerability. That can be a really big problem for your business if you rely too much on that. And the example this week is I'm working with a client through another agency where they had somebody, that exact thing happened, where they had an employee that was basically a team member, web developer that built their landing pages. And they're having a promotion. But unfortunately, that person got sick along with their entire family. And now they need these landing pages done. Now, landing pages should be simple. But in this case, they are not. There's a whole process involved, and I don't know that it's well documented, and there's certainly not a backup plan. And so they came to us. We were going to help, but they decided to use somebody else in the company because they're more familiar with what they do. It's a whole thing. It's complicated. But from looking from the outside in, I felt like, and I could be wrong on some of this. It's no reflection on them or whatever. We do know that we're there to try to help them get organized. But from the outside in, it should have been just, okay, this happened. Okay, we need these done. Here's the documentation, or here's that other person that is familiar with that process, that has been brought up to speed about how those things work. That's not happening. So it was a little chaotic for a minute or two until we figured out what we're going to do. But that can happen, right? If you have somebody in your business that is really tied into that particular, especially if it's something important like that, revenue, it's tied to revenue, that can be devastating, right? So another example was, I worked for a company years ago, and I remember specifically, I wasn't involved really with what was going on, just through the grapevine heard, but they had a particular employee that they were running basically a part of their business. They were doing a lot of things. Maybe it was through contacts, just communication processes, all that. Nobody else knew anything about it, but she did. And luckily they got ahead of that. I think somebody identified it. Maybe somebody new in the organization, and we need to fix that problem. What happens if she disappears tomorrow? Hopefully they won't, but you can't run a business on hope. So it's good to be prepared. This ties in also a little bit to, we're having a podcast, it's episode 79, that that posts on this coming Monday. And the Builders episode 79, I actually have somebody on that they specialize in building systems and processes and helping people with documentation and all that. And this is a great lesson because it kind of ties into that as well. So if you want to learn even more about that stuff, that is a great conversation. It kind of introduces you to what that is and how you can get excited about it, even knowing that it's not exciting to create documentation and do those things. But how do you get yourself or your team or somebody excited about that? That's what we got to the root of. But yeah, it's not exciting. But I tell you what, if the company I was just talking about, if they had good processes and good documentation, everything documented, and that process document, and then they had somebody else that was familiar with that process, at least on a high level, that could go use that documentation to build that out or give that to another team that can do it because there's a process, that would have really, really helped, because now this promotion that they're freaking out about could have, there wouldn't have had this situation that could potentially derail it or delay it or whatever's going to happen. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully they got that figured out. But that is really, really critical. When I look at my own business, my agency, and I look at my team and I look at everything we're doing, we're not perfect. I have to block time here and there to really look at our processes, review them from time to time. Where are we missing them? I can think of things right now where I need to really block that time to really map things out. But when I look at everything that we do, I want to make sure that we have good people in place. Maybe that's their main thing, but we also have a backup plan. I'm hiring right now a new project manager, my first project manager. But the idea there is there's a really important part of my agency at the stage we're in, the stage of growth we're in, where I'm still way too tied to getting to this part of getting things done, like receiving. As we grow, as we scale up, we're getting a lot more projects, a lot more tasks coming in, a lot more emails and communications. I need help with that now. And so if I would step away for a few days, I need somebody that can intake that stuff and even take a task and assign that to the right person. I need that in place. That's what I'm working on myself right now in my business, my agency. Super important. I know it is. But that is something I'm solving right now. But already beyond that, just an example of a project we did this past week where we were basically not redesigning the whole homepage, but it's an existing e-commerce store. They get a lot of sales. It's very delicate, everything we do, but we're making changes to the homepage. But the process happened in that, first of all, we're going to create a mock-up. And so I had my designer do that. Now, if that designer was gone, I would do it. Actually, we did work on it together. Or I have a backup plan for that. Like I know where I would get that design done. And then from there, it goes to staging. Once it's approved, goes to the staging site. We test it there. Communications with the client, communications with me, the developer, making changes, tweaks, get that approved. Now that goes live this morning. Okay. And we had like one little tweak, but we're good to go. Okay. But that person, that developer that was helping me with the staging and going live this morning, what happens if that developer, gets sick or has to be reassigned to something else or something, something like that? Well, I have a backup plan. I know who I can go to, say, I need a different resource for this because we need to get this done. Or I'll do it. That's the beautiful part about me having a web development. We do web design, web development. I can do web design, web development. So if I'm in a critical spot where something needs to get done and I don't have even time to look for somebody else, maybe I can jump in there and do it. So it's always about knowing the route and assuming, preparing. How does that saying go? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, or something like that. You can hope a lot that nothing's ever going to go sideways. It will, because when things go wrong, usually it's something surprising you can't anticipate always. So make sure you have those plans in place. Make sure you take the time and you look at every project, everything in your company, especially those critical pieces that touch revenue, that could derail a potential promotion you're having, or getting that landing page done, or anything. And it applies to other areas, marketing, everything. What happens if the person that helps me distribute all our content, or helps me work with my podcasts and deliver those and create the clips and all that? What happens when that person's gone? Do we have documentation to make sure that I could give that to somebody else, or do I just handle it? I bet I could just handle it. Speaking of that, note to my virtual assistant, let's make sure we have all this documented. Okay. Anyway, I hope you found this useful, helpful. I think it's really, really important. Again, one of those things maybe you can't get super excited about doing it, but you'll thank yourself later. Take care. Have a good one.